It wasn't just me. I
Nope.
was worried.
Nope. I think we're back. All right. So why don't you all take over?
Okay, no problem. So yeah, as Christina said, my name is Alix Cayce. I can go ahead and start by introducing myself, and then I'll pass it to Elia to do her introduction. But I'm based in Huntington Beach, California. I've worked for LegalPad previously and now Deel for the last 3 years. I've spent all of that time focused on immigration and helping, startup founders and early stage companies understand how they can be taking advantage of visas in the US and now around the world to be able to grow their businesses and work in this remote kind of world that we're creating now. So really excited to be talking to you guys about what kind of remote work and digital nomad visas we can pursue.
Yay. And I'm Elia Torres. I'm based in Dallas, Texas. I'm originally from Mexico, so hence why I'm talking about Mexico. I've been in global mobility for more than 10 years. I've done the consultant section, the industry section, and now the startup type of work. But glad to be here to talk about more about Mexico, and let us know if you have any questions at the end. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, so today what we're going to be covering, as alluded to, is the visa options for Mexico, Europe, and then general work visas. And then we're going to talk about some resources that are available to you. And then we'll go into a Q&A. I am going to be leading the majority of this presentation, but very fortunately, Elia is in the exact same time zone as me. So she was able to be part of this and really shed some light on Mexico. And then I'll go ahead and take things over again for the visas that we're covering in Europe. So Mexico. Elia, with that, I'll go ahead and let you get started with the Mexico portion of this presentation.
Sounds good. And then perfect. Yay. So we'll start with the tourist visa. What's a tourist visa, right? It's just a visitor visa that allows you to stay in the country for less than 180 days. This is a great option if you want to stay about 1 to 2 months. Many countries do not require a visa, like Canada or the US do not require visas to go into Mexico. But for countries that do need a visa, like Brazil or Thailand, you can waive this requirement if you have a current Schengen visa or a visa to travel to the US or Canada. And then with this visa, you have no income requirements. So the only thing that you have to make sure is you do have a valid passport and a completed Forma Migratoria Múltiple, which is the multiple immigration form that you get in the plane that you need to fill out when arriving in Mexico. So make sure you do. And then one thing to note is that the immigration authorities may request to verify the reason of your visit. So make sure you have a hotel reservation or return tickets, just handy. The next visa will be the temporary residence for economic solvency. So this visa is for people who want to reside in Mexico based on proof of economic solvency. And for this, you must show an income that meets or exceeds the required threshold consistently on your account each month for at least the last 6 months prior to the application date. And then be aware that some consulates are a little bit more strict and they may ask to see the last 12 months of income prior to the application date. So for example, the US requires proof of economic solvency by showing original and copy of 12 consecutive months of bank statements or investments with a minimum of 36K a month. In addition, they also need an original and copy of bank statements with deposit of a minimum of about 2,200 for the last previous 6 months. So just make sure you have that money in there and are able to show it. So, and then the last visa, which is the temporary resident visa. This is a temporary visa with a work permit authorization, and it is valid for 4 years. And this process has 3 main stages. First, request of the work permit by the Mexican company you'll be working for. Second, booking an appointment at the Mexican consulate abroad to complete the visa stamping process. This will be valid for 180 days and 1 single entry, and it will allow you to travel to Mexico to finalize the canje process. And then once in Mexico, the local registration or canje process will need to be completed before the immigration authorities to obtain the temporary residence card that will allow you to work in Mexico. Now, this is the final document that allows you to live and work in Mexico, and it will be issued for 1 year, but you can always renew for 1, 2, or 3 years after that. And then after that, you are allowed to be a permanent resident if you've been more than 4 years in Mexico. One thing to remember about this card is that every time you travel outside Mexico, you must carry your temporary residence card. In case you leave the country or enter without the card, the immigration authority could mark the departure or entry as a tourist, and this will automatically cancel your residency. So make sure you don't forget that. I'll pass it back to you, Alix.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
So we'll go ahead and move on from Mexico into Europe. And as we launch into these other countries, I just want to make a note that Deel can support immigration into these countries through our employer of record model. So these visas are available to you whether you go through Deel or not. But if you want to use Deel as a sponsor, you would be employing our employer of record model, which we'll share links with you later on. But if you want to learn more about how that works, I encourage you to reach out to us on the Deel team to understand, how we can be supporting your mobility through that option. So for Europe, as a whole, we just wanted to cover the EU Blue Card. You may or may not be familiar with the EU Blue Card, but it's a pretty remarkable option that will allow you to travel within the 25 countries covered under this option. So it's a work permit for non-EU nationals, and it'll allow you to live in the country that's sponsoring the visa, but travel within the 25 total countries. So you need to have a job offer from an employer in the EU. You also need to have a university degree or 5 years of relevant work experience, and then meet the salary requirements. Each country is going to handle this a little bit differently, but when you're approved, it will provide work authorization for the specific country that's sponsoring the Blue Card. And then that will give you, like I said, that travel authorization to then go freely between all the other countries. What's really cool about the EU Blue Card is that it does give you the option for permanent residency in almost every country it covers. So, for example, if you are getting an EU Blue Card through Germany and your ultimate goal is to have permanent residency in Germany, this is a great path towards permanent residency that would, still enable you to move freely as a nomad throughout all of the different countries in the meantime. So then we're going to go a little bit more into detail on a couple different countries. We'll start with France. France does not have a particular digital nomad visa. And that's something you'll see here in many countries, is that they haven't really rolled out like a visa specifically meant for digital nomads. So as the world sort of changes around this model of work, we're learning to understand how the existing visa options can support that work style, or how new visa options can come out that support it a little bit better. So couple options here. We have the short stay visa, which is valid for 90 days within a 180-day period. So very akin to that kind of tourist model. It will permit the holders to travel within all of the Schengen area. And there are some sort of minor financial requirements to show that you're able to support yourself while you're traveling in France. And then we have, I'm not even going to try to say this with a French accent, so I'll just call it the talent passport. And the talent passport is valid for 1 year with the possibility of renewal for up to 4 years, I believe. It's designed for people who plan to live and work in France for the longer term. And there's also a couple of different options that fall under this category. So you'd be looking at the highly qualified worker permit, which is the EU Blue Card, or the tech visa, which is a really cool new option that's sort of shaped around encouraging the growth of the tech industry in France. So if you're a startup founder or an employee of a French startup, this could be a great option for you to be able to live and work in France and have the ability to travel. And then we have the skilled worker permit, which is meant for individuals who've graduated from a French university. So if you find yourself in any one of those categories, this could be a really great option for you. So then we'll look at Portugal. So Portugal has quite a few different options. There's also, same as France, the temporary stay visa. So that's designed for non-EU, EEA, or Swiss citizens. The temporary stay visa is valid for 2 years and has the option to extend up to 5 years. The main requirement, and really the only requirement, is that you are meeting this income requirement of 2,800 euro per month. What most people regard as the Portuguese digital nomad visa is the D7 passive income visa. So same type of requirements, except that you're generating passive income. So freelancers and other digital nomads are often eligible. This is valid for 2 years. We have a lot of nomads who are looking into this visa option now, and it's something that's definitely growing. The one thing you would want to be aware of if you're putting Portugal at the top of your list is that there is a little bit of added time in administrative processing for this visa. Portugal's sort of figuring out how this visa works for nomads at the moment. So you would just want to be prepared to wait maybe a little bit longer than you expected to wait. There's also the startup visa and Portuguese golden visa. So the Portuguese golden visa is designed for foreign nationals who invest in Portugal. That can be property, it can be business. And then the startup visa is designed for startup founders who have growth potential and a business plan to meet those financial requirements. So if you're a founder and you're able to show that you're able to grow your business in Portugal and contribute to the economy, that could be a really great option for you, especially if you want something that gives a little bit more longevity. And then we have the short stay tourist visa. So this is standard tourist visa, stays shorter than 90 days, just kind of allowing you to come in and pop out of Portugal as needed and live that truly nomadic lifestyle that I know a lot of us are really keen to explore. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and take a look at Spain. Now, we haven't covered all of the Spanish visa options here, and that's by design because Spain actually has a digital nomad visa. So they have acknowledged this nomadic lifestyle and they've created a visa around it. So individuals who are eligible are non-EU, EAA, or Swiss citizens. You may be noticing a theme here. And US green card holders are eligible as well. So it's valid for 1 year with the option to extend up to 5 years. It does require that you're meeting this income minimum threshold of 2,334 euro per month, very specific. There's a bunch of benefits. It allows you to pursue a Spanish residency permit if you'd like to, which would enable you to travel within the EU. And then as compared to other income requirements in other European countries, it's quite low. So it really does give you the chance to kind of work remotely. And if that means that your income is a little bit lower than the average employee, that's going to be okay with this Nomad visa. Okay. So we're going to pivot now to looking at some more generalized visa information, and then we'll talk a little bit about how Deel can be supporting you in sort of your digital nomad lifestyle. So I'll tack back over to Elia here to talk about some general visa info.
Yeah, just really quick. Things to remember are visa requirements are very different by country. So go to those consulate web pages. Make sure that you review income requirement, application processes, and eligibility criteria. Be aware of any visa restrictions, such as limitations on work or activities. Visa processing times can also vary. So some countries may give you an authorization in 5 days. Other countries may take 6 months. So always be aware of that. And then check expiration dates and renewals. This is super important. Just keep tracking your expiration date and renewal requirements.
Yeah, that's a big one. I've spent so much of my time focused on US immigration, and I can't tell you how heartbreaking it is when somebody misses their deadline and there's really just no other option than to leave the country, where oftentimes that can be avoided if you're just getting on ahead of things by a few weeks or a month or two. So can't echo that enough. Okay, so then we're going to look at some resources for digital nomads. So we're going to start by just highlighting these 3 key features. So we do have a blog here at Deel that is going to cover so many topics as they relate to remote work and kind of growing global teams. You may or may not know, but Deel is a completely remote company, and we're achieving that with over 2,500 employees. So Remote work is near and dear to our hearts, and we really want to enable individuals to pursue their goals, achieve their milestones fully remote. It is completely possible. And, we have all of this experience now to be able to share with you. So I encourage you to take a look at that blog. We also now have the Deel community, which is going to enable you to connect with other Deel remote workers, find remote worker resources and more. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then, of course, we offer support with immigration. And so what I do want to mention is for the Deel community and our immigration resources, as I mentioned at the beginning of this call, these are somewhat limited to those individuals who take advantage of our employment models. So either you're an independent contractor or an employer of record through Deel, but it does require that you're sort of contractually aligned with Deel supporting that remote work. So that's something I would really encourage you to look into, especially as nomads, and especially if you're running your own companies, because it does enable you to hire the right person for the job, regardless of where they are in the world. And it makes it really, really simple. If that person needs a visa to be able to work in the country they want to work in, that's where we can step in as well, as we're talking about today, and make sure that they have the visa they need to be able to accomplish what you're hoping they'll accomplish. So let's talk a little bit about the Deel community. So Deel Community is brand new. It's an inclusive one-stop platform that's dedicated to all things remote work. So like I said, this is so near and dear to our hearts. We really want to evangelize the benefits of remote work for all of our clients. So you can access it from anywhere in the globe, and it'll allow you to connect, belong, and build relationships with other remote workers. As you know, through Outsite, they work so hard to grow those relationships and give you a sense of community, no matter where you find yourself. This is really hoping to kind of echo that message and bring you together, even if you're completely separate. It'll also enable you to find valuable curated resources. So it's a source of truth and knowledge when it comes to using Deel, our immigration services, finding tax advice, accessing our perks, all of that. And then you'll get a lot of support from leaning on peers with similar experiences to find local tips and information. So it can be a really, really great resource if you're wondering questions like, where can I meet other workers in the same industry near me? Or what types of legal documents do I need to work from this country? You'll be able to find answers from the largest group of global workers right in that community. And then it'll also enable you to strike up conversations, get peer support, catch a local meetup in your country, and get tips on navigating Deel, and really so much more. They've even sort of gamified it so that you can get badges and unlock new ranks as you engage. So it really is catered very heavily to that digital nomad persona. So then we want to take a few moments here to give a shout out to the Outsite locations in the 4 countries that we covered today. So I know you guys are located all over the world, but if you're interested in visiting these countries, these are going to be all of the Outsite locations that you can visit. And then, yeah, we'll go ahead and move into some Q&A. So feel free to write your questions in the chat and we'll hopefully be able to answer them.
Yay. Yeah, I just responded to, I think Cabello, he had a question about Mexico. So just responded to that. Let me know if you have any other questions about Mexico.
Awesome. And yeah, Allison has shared the links that you can use if you're keen to book a consultation for any of these countries. We'd be happy to speak. We actually cover 29 different countries when it comes to mobility. So although we highlighted these 4 countries, we're also able to help you in quite a few more as well. Which Portuguese visa has the least bureaucracy? That's a really good question. I would want to go through your case in more detail. So we would really want to assess the details of your case to understand which one is going to be easiest for you. But in general, Portugal has such an influx of people trying to get these visas at this moment that they're all taking a little bit longer. So it doesn't necessarily come down to bureaucracy. It just comes down to kind of Portugal being overwhelmed by visa inquiries. I actually know people who are pursuing the Nomad visa. I know people who are pursuing the Golden visa. They're all sort of facing these same challenges of things taking a little bit longer than they probably should and getting wrapped up in that bureaucracy, as you mentioned. So That said, if you are keen to explore it, you should book a consultation and we'll go into your case in a little bit more detail and help you understand which visa would be the best option. And then we can really give a clearer answer on how long that would take, what challenges you might face along the way, etc. What kind of job platforms do you recommend as far as looking for jobs in Europe? That's a great question that I honestly don't know how to answer. I don't know. Does anyone from the Outsite team potentially know an answer to that? No? Christina?
I don't think so, because especially for the Outsite community, we're really interested in jobs that are remote. So definitely any kind of platform that caters towards remote work. And there's, so many of them now, which is really exciting. But that's kind of where our community is focused on, is is the ability to work from anywhere.
Yeah. So kind of same thing with Deel. We can enable that remote work. So if you find a company that's willing to hire you, it could be, you could be located in Lithuania and the company is located in the US, and we can enable them to hire you, legally, compliantly, all of that. So it really does open up the option for you to be looking for jobs anywhere in the world and just ask them, are they willing to hire through a remote work platform like Deel, and then it becomes a lot easier. But unfortunately, that's where it sort of breaks down. We can't find the job for you. We don't have like a posting or anything like that. Okay, the Spain digital nomad visa does not automatically include the ability to travel in the EU. Does that require an additional process? Yeah, you would need to apply for sort of a secondary document that would give you the ability to travel within the EU. This is a question for Outsite. So concerning Outsite, do you know the next location to be opened?
Yes.
It says platform, welcome to the jungle.
Yes, thanks for the great tip on the French tech jobs platform. Super good to know. And yes, for Outsite, we do have a couple of very exciting announcements coming up. I can tell you one of them is going to be in one of the countries listed here. So keep an eye on your inbox. And I also have a quick question I want to jump in here. Since the Spain visa or the Spain digital nomad visa is new, do you know what the approximate kind of wait time and approval time is for that visa?
Yeah, I wish I could give really clear answers to these types of questions. Unfortunately, it's the same type of situation as Portugal, where it's sort of changing daily. So they are getting a lot of demand and they're kind of changing the rules as we go. And this sounds daunting. It might sound a little bit like, oh, well, why even bother then? But that's just not the case. It's still worth trying for these visas. It's still worth pursuing them. We just always need to understand that it's very different in countries where they're rolling out brand new visa categories. A lot of us are used to, for example, the US, where the visas that exist are the same visas that have existed for the last 50 years and the regulations have remained static. When a new visa is rolled out, everything sort of changes as it goes. So in Spain, it should take only a few months. Whether it's going to only take a few months or not is a much bigger question, but they would like for it to take about 2 or 3 months to get that processed.
We have some questions in the Q&A box. So Hassan has a question. I make passive income from YouTube. Does that make me qualified to apply for a Portugal visa?
It may. Yeah, we would need to look into your case more specifically. So I would encourage you to, book a consultation. It does come down to more factors than just, very high level. So if you have a case specific question, I would really encourage you to book a call and we'll look into that. Okay, how long approximately is the processing time for the D7 visa? Let me just check that really quickly. Give me 1 second. I think the next question is about Mexico, Elia. So I'm not sure if you're able to answer that while I look.
Whether it's Mexico, France, or Portugal, are there any restrictions if you work for an external country, if you enter with the tourist visa, as long as you're not working locally? So in Mexico, I can only answer for the Mexico side, but in Mexico, if you're a tourist and you are doing some remote work, it should be fine as long as you're not getting remunerated in Mexico. So make sure that you're not getting any payment in Mexico, and everything is going in from an outside payroll. So if you're working for an American company, make sure that your payment is through the American company and not Mexico. You cannot receive any type of payment in Mexico for any work activities.
Yeah. And that tends to be pretty much the case across the board, is following that structure. The US is the one country that's extremely strict about this. So you cannot engage in work activities as a tourist in the US in active work, but otherwise other countries follow that same kind of structure. Okay, so coming back to the timelines, I did just check. Updated timeline for Spain is 3 to 5 months, so a little bit longer. In Portugal, the timeline right now is looking to be about 3 to 4 months, but with the caveat that delays are expected if the employee is already in country. So if you need a change of status or a change of employer or a renewal, then there is a backlog in immigration authorities in Portugal right now, so you can expect it to take longer. But it sounds like if you're outside of Portugal pursuing this visa, it's about a 3 to 4 month timeline. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so the Spanish digital nomad visa has the benefit to apply for Spanish residency permit. Let me just check my resources here. Sorry, we cover so many different countries. I want to make sure I'm giving you all the right information. 1 second. So you'll have the ability to apply for a residency permit that will allow you to travel. It won't be a permanent residency. So that's not something that could lead to like citizenship down the road, but it would give you the ability to travel in other EU countries within Spain. If you wanted to move to Spain and pursue an option that had a little bit more longevity, you could look for the highly qualified worker permit. It is going to require that you have a job offer in Spain, a minimum yearly salary of just under 34,000 euro, and a university degree or an experience letter that shows that you're well qualified for that job. And then the validity of that is going to be about 2 years. And that would give you the option ultimately to pursue residence, I believe. So if you, again, same thing, if you want to talk through your case in more detail and get more detailed information about that visa option, please feel free to book a call. We'll get you on with the specialist.
We have a question from David, who has an EU passport from the Netherlands. What's the process like to move to Spain, and can Deel assist me with other things other than the visa? I'm going to drop a link to a guide that we have that covers relocation topics. So you can at least see kind of a checklist of all of the items that you should be aware of for relocating. So I'm going to drop that into the chat so other people can access it.
Yeah, and so Deel can support you with the visa as long as you're, a client of Deel's. That's the caveat I keep mentioning. In terms of relocation services, it's not something that we offer ourselves at this particular time. So relocation services would need to be pursued elsewhere. Okay, so do they want us to start outside of the countries before applying for the visas, Portugal and Spain? I mean, I wouldn't want to say that. If you're in Portugal, that's not a reason not to apply for a Portuguese visa. It just might impact the timeline a little bit. So same thing, let's look into your case in more detail and we'll be able to assess it with the specialist to give you a really concrete answer. Do I have any experience with people starting their businesses while being a nomad, and do I recommend it? Yeah, a lot of people do this. So that's a really common use case for a digital nomad, is an entrepreneur and a startup founder. Do I recommend it? I've never done it myself, so I can't really tell you what the experience is like from a firsthand, but I have worked with hundreds, if not thousands at this point, of startup founders who've started their companies from locations all around the world. And then as those companies grow, they ultimately decide which country they really want to put their investment into. And that's typically where you sort of choose your location. But yeah, a lot of people do start companies while working remotely. Okay, what is the main income required for an IC to move to France? What type of visa should I be eligible for as an IC at Deel? So this is a great question. Again, same thing. I would encourage you to book a call so that we can assess your case independently. When it comes to salary requirements, I can shed some light on that. Just give me 1 second. I wish I could remember all of this. That would be remarkable. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at all my resources, but there's a few different options. So if you're looking at the highly qualified worker permit, the minimum is going to be just shy of 54,000 euro, and you'll have to have at least 3 years of university education. If you're looking at the tech visa, this is often much more applicable to our nomads. The one thing you really need to be aware of, though, is that France is focused on growing the tech industry in France. So they're going to want your focus to be on engaging the French market, growing that business within France, seeking French investment, etc. Your yearly salary is going to need to be just over 41,000 euro. And then there's the skilled worker option, which does require a job offer and a minimum salary of same thing, just over 41,000 euro. And then that one does require that you graduated from a French university. So just depending on your case, any of these could be applicable, but we would need to assess to be more clear. Okay.
I feel like we're up to date, right? On all the questions, or are we missing another one?
I think we're missing this blue card question. Yeah, I have a couple others here. So with the EU blue card, can you earn income in any of the 25 countries or only in the one that is sponsoring? Is the time we spend in other countries limited? Yeah, so you, similar to what Elia said, you do need to be employed within the country that's sponsoring the visa. It does allow you to travel freely, but you're making your income within that country. I actually don't know if the time you spend in other countries is limited. That's a great question that I'd love to get the answer to. I can share my email address with you and with everyone on this call. And if you just follow up with me with that question, I'll be happy to get the answer for you. I always learn a lot on these webinars because people have questions. I don't know. How are the countries determining whether an employee is remote? I mean, it's typically comes down to your work address and what you declare. So each country is going to have different regulations around this. When I'm signed into Deel, how do I access the Deel community? Actually, Allison, do you know the answer to that question?
Yeah, let me grab the link to it and I'll drop it in here. It's community.deel.com. So I'm going to type the answer into the question box. Oh, but it kind of disappeared. So let me put it in the chat as well. There you go.
Perfect. Awesome. So I'll just kind of fill the space in case anybody has other questions, but the way that Deel Immigration works, we have specialists for each different country. So that's why I keep saying book a call, because then we'll actually get you in front of someone who's the true expert on this region, just like Elia is for Mexico and other countries in Latin America. So they're an amazing resource, and I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to, assess their case in more detail so we don't miss a great opportunity for you to move to a really nice country for a while. What if you don't have a permanent home? Does this pose a problem? It shouldn't for most visas, but it is going to vary. Elia, does that cause a problem in Mexico if somebody doesn't have a permanent address?
It depends on the type of visa that you're applying for, but it shouldn't be a problem if you're applying for the work permit or the economic solvency. It's really economic solvency. You need to show that you have enough money in the bank to get that visa. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of a general theme across almost every country. Is their biggest concern is really, can you support yourself while you're in this country? Are you going to be ending up needing to take advantage of social services or things like that? That's going to be a big red flag. So they're really looking for that financial support to be in place. Any other questions?
Someone had a question about wanting to have a call about both Portugal and Spain, and whether there needs to be 2 separate calls or whether we can have somebody on the call that specializes in both countries.
Yeah, we could probably accommodate that. We do have separate specialists, but they both roll up to the same sort of organization. So go ahead and shoot me an email on that rather than booking a call through the link, and I'll go ahead and coordinate that for you.
And I just wanted to mention that I share my email as well. Anyone that has any questions about any country in Latin America, just send out an email to me. Happy to help.
Yeah. Anything else?
There's one question here from Alexandra. So home address. What if you don't have a permanent home? Does this pose a problem?
Yeah, that's the one we answered about where Elia was talking, no problem. But it won't for most visa categories. It will for some.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yay. I didn't see anything. Okay, of course, sharing.
Let's say I have a company that offers services, example, a therapist. Everything is done online. If I have a client that is in the country you are in, does that count as local earning? These regulations are going to be country specific. So, you know, the US and Mexico are going to look at locally earned income differently. And oftentimes it has to do with like how open they are to accepting nomads. So if that's your business model, same thing. Sorry to keep pushing these answers off, but go ahead and shoot that to me in an email. I'll have the specialist review it, and then we can give you a concrete answer on whether that'll impact your eligibility for a visa.
Right.
No problem.
I feel like Superman right now. We answer all questions.
Yeah, it's so cool. I'm so excited for everyone who's on here. Being a nomad is so much fun, and exploring all these different countries. I mean, Christina, you're like the chief digital nomad.
It's all fun and games until the power gets cut during calls. So I apologize if I've been in and out, but thank you ladies for continuing on and getting, like you said, everyone's questions answered. Some superwoman action here today. Thank you so much for all the great information that you've shared.
Yeah, of course. And like I said, I mean, obviously we want to support the Outsite locations, and these are the countries we share Outsite location and support with, but don't let that hold you back from reaching out if you have questions about other countries. We do support mobility in 29 countries total. So we always want to help people understand which options are going to make the most sense for their long-term goals. So if you know, I want to be a nomad for the next 5 years, and then I want to settle down in Germany, we can really help you understand how can you set yourself up for success for that long-term goal as well. So take a more holistic approach to immigration. I think that's my number one piece of advice always for people who are dealing in immigration is don't just think about the now, think about what comes next as well. So you can be absolutely certain you're setting yourself up for success. Cool. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
And I think a couple of people are concerned about booking consultations and going into like a different country. So don't worry, we'll fix it on our side. I think AJ said he booked a consultation today for Mexico, but he says the US, but we'll fix it on our side and make sure it goes to the right country.
Yeah, and just to let you know, our team that handles Mexico is actually located in the US. So that also could be part of the reason why you're seeing that.
Probably.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I think we may be set.
Awesome. Okay, well, if anybody does have things come up, like we've said, shoot us an email, book a consultation, whatever you prefer. Happy to help Outsite teams always. So yeah, thank you so much for working with us on this.
I know. It's been great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to Deel for all of your wonderful information. You can tell by the chat, it's been super, super helpful to everyone. And hope everyone gets in touch with Deel so you can kind of start and continue your nomad journey. All right,
guys.
everyone. We'll see you
Bye.
next time.
See
Ciao,
you.
ciao.